The following show is a paid program.
Hey family, thank you so much for tuning in today. We will have Mark Ruffin on today. Tamisha Horton couldn't make it, but she is the CEO of ZBT Awards. Tonight is her event. She had a lot to do tonight, so she's going to have that event tonight. Mark Ruffin, I want to read a little bit about my friend Mark Ruffin. He celebrates 40 years in radio broadcasting with the September 1st publication of his short story and collection, Bebop Fairy Tales. Mark Ruffin is known coast to coast as the afternoon drive time DJ for SiriusXM's Real Jazz channel. He celebrates his 40th anniversary in jazz radio in and on September 2020. Mark Ruffin, my friend, how you doing?
Hey Cam, how are you, sir?
I'm so excited. 40 years, and today our topic is lifetime achievement in radio. And who best to talk to us about it?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Let's go back. Let's find out, how did you get started and why?
My father was an electrician, and he had a record store in Chicago. For the first 8 years of my life, I was in the record store. I'm the fifth of 6 kids, and my brothers and sisters and I, we fell in love with music. And at the time, Smokey Robinson and Curtis Mayfield was producing tons and tons of artists. And we would get all these records and see their names continuously. And I and an older sister, we just started paying attention to the lyrics of Curtis Mayfield and Smokey Robinson. And in fact, Smokey is the first person that I dedicate something to in my book, because Smokey taught me how to turn a phrase. And I fell in love with the English language through Smokey Robinson. And also being in a record store, I mean, you know, record promotion people and radio was very important at the time. I listened to tons and tons of radio, and it's just by osmosis. You know, it was natural for me to become a musician first, and then get into radio. I mean, everything has been osmosis to me, except when it came to getting this book together. But I mean, man, music, whether it's, and a lot of people don't know, but I know more about R&B than I do jazz. But music to me is been just like growing up, like, you know, health check. I know what's going on musically.
Right.
And it's a spirit, man. And that spirit has touched me since I was a kid, and it's just all through me. Radio is just a natural extension of it to me.
Wow, I love that. I love the way you say that. I love the way you speak on it. And many people now, of course, music, with the pandemic, they're at home. They're by themselves. Some are alone. And many of them are listening to music. They're listening to broadcasting. They're listening to radio. They're, you know, looking at different things differently. In looking at COVID-19, where do you see music and broadcasting as you've seen it?
Whew.
What's the changes?
Mr. Hill, I'm sure that you have talked to musicians,
Yes.
and actors, and people in the arts, and they're hurting, man. I feel so bad for them. Radio, what I've learned is that we can be a salve to people hurt and pain.
Yes.
My company, SiriusXM, we thought we were really gonna be hurt through the pandemic when it started, but actually our subscriber base never went down, and it stayed stronger than in the past, because people need somebody to reach out to. You know, one reason SiriusXM succeeds, as opposed to, you know, just streaming music people want to hear a voice, man. They may love music, they may love R&B or jazz, but they want someone to comfort them or to lead them or to tell them, and that's what I learned about in the pandemic, is that whatever that is even stronger.
Right.
I think broadcasting is going to be very healthy. It's musicians and actors and artists that I worry about.
Right.
How this, hopefully, I think after the pandemic, there's also going to be, man, the airline industry is going to make so much money because people are just going to want to come together, and there's been some amazing things that some artists have done during the pandemic, and I think once it's over, there's just going to be an explosion of ideas, and hopefully, people coming together, caring more about each other. That's what I hope will happen musically after the pandemic.
I love that. I love that. In looking at just your years and just giving a little advice, just starting off, I was reading about the fact that your parents, of course, had the record store, and then there was a robbery. Tell us about that and how that changed you.
Wow, that's the first memory. One of the first memories I have in life. In fact, it's a story I've told many times, and in fact, the National Endowment for the Arts loved the story so much.
Yes.
They actually made a little cartoon about it. You can, if you Google my name and the NEA Arts or go to National Endowment, you can see it. But what happened was, I was maybe, I thought I was like 5. My mom says I was younger. And my dad was an electrician. He was a full-time electrician at a steel mill. And this was his business. And he fixed radios and TVs. And to bring people into the store, that's what he used music for, records. So one day, a guy walks in with a woman and pulls a gun on my mother and has the gun at her side. And I'm a toddler underneath. And on the turntable was the Miles Davis single. Now, some folks may not remember 45 singles,
right,
or record players that used to reject and come back to the beginning of the song. Yeah. And this was a song by Miles Davis called If I Were a Bell, where he starts talking at the beginning, where he says, I play it now, tell you what it is later. And it was only 3 minutes and 26 seconds or something like that. And as long as that guy came back, I felt that I would be safe. That is the moment I contribute that music as a spirit protected me and has protected me ever since. My mom tells me now she was so scared, man, so scared.
Yes.
But we made it through. Yeah.
Absolutely. You've told that story, and you're right. I looked at it, and of course, in researching you, I thought that was so pivotal at such a young age to recall that and to remember that and to carry it through your life.
Man, what was significant for me, besides the fact that I think that's when music kind of started protecting me, was I don't remember when Miles Davis wasn't a part of my life.
Wow.
That is what, I just don't. Miles, seems to me, there's always been a picture of the music of Miles Davis somewhere in my life, my whole life. And that from that moment on.
Absolutely. And looking back for 40 years, many people, now 40 million people are unemployed, and they have dreams many times of doing just something different. Many didn't want to go to work. They had to go to work anyway. But now they're able to think, what do I really want to do? And looking back in broadcasting for you, what have you learned along the way, and what would you tell others?
Wow, man, there's so much there.
We've got time.
Dude, I have 3 very incredible sons, and I was nervous about their lives up until the last one graduated, and they're like Supermen. And people tell me I should write a book about them. I disagree. But one thing that I told them that I try to tell my interns, and by the way, I got to brag, man. My son and one of my interns was just named by Forbes magazine just yesterday in the 30 under 30 category,
Wow.
30 kids to watch. So my
Yes.
son, his name is Malcolm, and my intern, her name is Lydia Lehman. Again, they're both in Forbes magazine yesterday.
Yeah.
I told my kid always, all of them, this is America. Despite the racism, despite the hypocrisy, that the founding fathers' ideas were sound. That if you show up every day, you work hard every day, you stay away from legal trouble, and work hard, you may not get the American dream, but you can get a little slice. And the alternative is horrible. So if you do all that, I believe you can succeed. I've succeeded 40 years in radio. I don't have a college degree.
Wow.
I worked very hard to get one, ran out of money. I used college as a great resource, but I did not let not having a degree stop me. So that's some advice I would give to folks. Also, to get what you want to do, if you look at my history, September 1st, 1980 is what I consider my first day in radio. But actually, I was on radio a couple years before that because I volunteered. And volunteerism can get you a lot of things, you know, especially if you take those three things I talked about, working hard every day, showing up, doing a great job, and you're doing it as a volunteer, somebody's going to see that. Somewhere down the line, you're going to get, you know, the karma. It's paid back. So that's the kind of advice I would give. And I mentioned my boys and my intern because with my interns, and man, I've had some incredible interns. I've tried to use that same philosophy, telling them that just show up every day, work hard. You do that consistently, somebody will notice and you'll move up.
Absolutely. And looking at your life and looking at the 40 years, it seemed like joy. I know it wasn't all the time. I know it wasn't all the time, but it seemed like it.
Yeah, man, I've never understood, and again, this is from my father and mother and my brothers and sisters. I never understood people who choose to do something they don't like.
Yes.
You know, even if you're forced to do, like I was at the post office when I was volunteering, but I was volunteering. I was doing other things to try to better myself. I mean, there are things that's going to hold you up in life that stop you, but if you persevere, you can get at least close to what you want. If not what you want, you should be happy, not sad at what you do every day.
Absolutely. Going through this life, especially now that we look and the life is on pause, kind of, you know, the world is on pause. It stopped. It literally stopped around the world nationally. And people had to really reflect on what do they really want in life.
That's right. That's right. And well, right now it's so hard. Right now it's so hard, and it's hard to get people to see that. And I get that, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, it's a long tunnel, but there's a light. Perseverance is the thing. Perseverance.
Absolutely. Looking in some of the things that you've done, I saw in 2006, Harpo Productions, which is Oprah Winfrey Network. Many people want to know about that. How did it start and just the process going through?
Oh, man. I have so much respect for her, man. It's hard for me to, I still call her Miss Winfrey. It was an amazing experience for life, for me, for many, many ways. There's so many great stories I could tell you about working for her. And life is funny, man. You talk about inspiring and being inspired and being lucky. If you look at my life work between 1980 and 2000, 20 years, I had 4 jobs in jazz radio in one city. That's like impossible, right? You can't even do it now. So in 2000, when I was fired from that last job, I thought to myself, why should I just take any job? I should go about freelancing, trying to do production, whatever I want to do until that right job come along. And it was amazing, man. I for 6 years, I had it was the most fun I ever had in my life. freelancing is like being on vacation every day, except you don't get any days off. And if you do miss a day, you're gonna pay for it 30 days later. Okay.
Right.
Um, so those are the things I learned about freelancing. But for 6 years, I looked at that as I was freelancing not by choice. I just wanted to get a job.
Yes.
And Miss Winfrey, man. So there was a guy at SiriusXM at the time who wanted me to work on his radio show. In those 6 years, Cam, I produced records. I got on television. I won 2 Emmy Awards. I started writing this book. How the book started was I fell in love with screenplays. And it was during those 6 years I laid the groundwork. I just hustled and hustled. And then a friend of mine at XM told me that Oprah, he wanted me on his station, and he heard Oprah was starting a radio channel and that I should try to get in, you know. And I used every connect I could to get in, and I couldn't. I used to work for Ramsey Lewis, who knew Miss Winfrey's husband or boyfriend, whose name I can't remember right now. And nothing. I couldn't get anything. When I worked in smooth jazz radio, in those 20 years I was talking about, I spent 9 years at one station. I was late one time. That became like a legacy. People would tease me, right? So that was I worked there 1988 to 96. So fast forward 2006, I'm trying to get into Oprah, and I couldn't break a door down. Then they hired the general manager of that station where I used to work. This is how I got the job. No kidding. I picked up the phone. I said, John Guerin, it's Mark Ruffin. He was like, oh my God, Mark Ruffin, you're perfect. Call me in 2 weeks. It was the strength of showing up every day that got me that job at Oprah. You know, all he could think of, he told me later, he said, all I thought of, man, you were late one time, you know, and showing up every day. Wow. That is how so Oprah was creating a radio station, and again, she hired a former general manager of mine, and I got in. I was one of the producers. It's called a PA position with Gayle King, Robin Smith. Those were my responsibilities. I had a lot of fun with Gayle. And Cam, I thought when I got there in 2006, 2 things happened. I remember my first day, because I was freelancing, having so much fun. I remember my first day, I thought, oh my goodness, what have I done? I gave up all that freedom, you know, and because now I had a regular job.
Right, that you have to be at.
Yes, but I figured, man, the benefits and everything, I could tell you so many stories. I thought I would be there the rest of my life. I thought when my young one, the one who I just told you was in Forbes magazine, I thought that I'll be there. I'll get his college paid. I'll do this. I'll do that. I wasn't there 17 months, man. What? 17 months later, my dream job opened up at SiriusXM, and so many people helped me to get it. Miss Winfrey was amazing. When I could tell you so many stories about being at Harpo. Okay, I'll tell you a story, then I'll tell you when I left. You know, she would take everybody on vacation every 5 years.
Wow.
Closed the whole company down, okay? When I came 2.5 years before, they had just went to the Bahamas. They paid their taxes, everything. She's amazing, man. And then, like I said, I was only there 17 months. I didn't get to the 5 years where she took. So she took them on a trip to the Riviera. It was like 10 days and French Riviera, Italy, Greece. And my department, Harpo Radio, they got in front of the Acropolis and had a sign that said, how's that dream job going? But it was a dream job, man. And when you leave Harpo, you have to tell everybody why you're leaving. And I told them it was my dream job. And I I wrote her a very nice letter, and I went to give her flowers. Her assistant said I should give her flowers. When I walked into her office area, she was walking out, and she stopped everybody. She said, everybody, this is Mark Ruffin. I want you guys to remember, I am just a conduit. Live your best life. You can live it through me, but you got to live your best. And I'm so proud of you. And then she hugged me and whispered in my ear, I could always come back.
Wow.
She was amazing, man. She was amazing. And there's so much more I could tell you, but the what are those things called where you sign agreements?
Yes.
Those
absolutely.
things were thick. And I got a lot of them. Okay.
I got you. I understand. Let's
Yeah.
do this right now. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with Mark Ruffin.
We'll be right back to the Cam Hill Show after these messages.
During the season's best sales event, Ron Carter Cadillac delivers 0% APR for 72 months plus $2,500 bonus cash on all 2020 XT4, XT5, and XT6. Or drive 2020 XT4 Luxury Collection only $299 a month. 2020 XT5 Premium Luxury Collection just $369 a month. And first ever 2020 XT6 Premium Luxury Collection just $399 a month. All for 39-month lease with just $1 down.
RonCarterCadillac.com.
I'm attorney Willie Powles. Allow me to express myself with you. If you've been hurt or injured in a car or truck accident, give me a call and we'll get it fixed today.
When it comes to protecting yourself and your partners, all the information out there can be overwhelming. Visit our website. We are a free and confidential service striving to help you stay informed and stay notified. We are committed to a healthy Houston.
Have you been injured in an 18-wheeler accident, truck accident, car accident? Was someone texting and ran into the back of you, not paying attention? It doesn't matter what it is. Give me a call, attorney Willie Powles. We'll fix it today. The number is 281-881-2457. Again, that number is 281-881-2457. We'll fix it today. Call attorney Willie Powles.
And now back to the Cam Hill Show.
Hey, thanks so much for coming back. We are talking to Mark Ruffin. Mark, we were talking about Harpo Studios and Oprah and your time being there. But I saw, let's step a little bit back in the 1990s when you were kind of writing a little fiction and screenwriting. Let's talk about that and how that got started.
Wow. You know, Cam, I told you earlier, man, music, radio was just an extension of my childhood.
Yes.
I've been so lucky to find something I loved that I really didn't have to work at. You mentioned it was joy. I didn't learn what I really wanted to do in life until the 90s when I fell in love with screenwriting. And by this time I'd been in the business 15 years or so. I did a deep dive. I taught myself. There's a great author whose name I can't think of right now, but he's famous for how-to learning screenwriting. Fields is his last name. And I studied great screenplays. I watched over 300 movies. I took notes. And then I was lucky enough to fall into a great screenwriters group. And it was writers from different publications in Chicago. What I didn't mention, my writing career actually started, I was jazz editor of Chicago Magazine for 27 years, started in 1982. And so this screenwriters group I was in the 90s, we had people from Playboy, from Ebony, from the daily papers. It was a lot of us, so many of us, that we always had a screenplay to talk about. We even made a movie. It was a movie where I was music supervisor, and it's still in the IMDb database. And so I fell in love with writing fiction, man. And my first screenplay was a screenplay about Fats Waller being kidnapped by Al Capone. And what I found with fiction was that I loved history, and every story I came up with was history. Because I was already connected by the time, I was doing an interview with Ramsey Lewis and Terrence Blanchard, the famous Terrence. It's so funny now. Terrence is an Oscar-winning composer. Back then, Terrence was a jazz musician trying to get in the movie business.
Right.
And he was working with Spike, and I told him, what I was doing, man. And he said, dude, he gave me Spike's information. I sent Spike the screenplay. Spike, and somewhere I have the letter he wrote me back that said, dude, history costs money. Don't send that to black independent companies. And he wanted to see what's next. But Cam, for some reason, when I got into fiction, all I could think about was history.
Yes.
And I kept writing, and then my group told me I should write something about myself. And I did. They kind of liked it. I sent it to the Sundance screenwriting competition, and I ended up making the first cut of the screenwriting competition.
Yeah.
It was an amazing experience. I have a famous friend, Malcolm Jamal Warner, who told me, he said, dude, you got a Robert Redford seeing Agent Free card. Come to LA for a few weeks. And I went to LA, man, and I hung out with a lot of folks, and he was right. Agents would talk to me, and he took me to a party. Man, I'll never forget this. It was at Kim Fields' house. Remember Kim Fields?
I know, yes, Kim Fields, yes.
And she was into poetry, and so was Malcolm, and he was introducing me to people, and I told this guy, stopped me. He said, dude, if you know the movie Brokeback Mountain, which was really hot, this was 2003, he said it came from a book of short stories.
Wow.
And that was the instant that my motivation for my book came up. Bebop Fairy Tales, an historical fiction trilogy on jazz, intolerance, and baseball.
And
I
let's
wrote
talk about that
five.
one. Yeah.
I wrote 4 screenplays in 7 years, man, but it took me 17 years to write this book.
Wow. Let's talk about this book. It's a pivotal point and truly a masterpiece. Let's talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
If it's taking that long, it's got to be a masterpiece.
I used to be really shy about letting people read it, and but the more people read it, and to hear you say like it's a masterpiece, and I've heard other people say it's an epic. I mean, that just warms my heart. So, and for it to come out at this time, Cam,
yes.
I did not plan it. Some writer wrote me. How did you manage to do this during this time and get this all done? I was like, oh no, that was just coincidence. I think, in this time where there's a lot of books and a lot of books trying to teach folks about how not to be racist or how to spot a racist.
Yes.
In my book, I didn't realize it until afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. All righty. Let's do this. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
We'll be right back to the Cam Hill Show after these messages.
During the season's best sales event, Ron Carter Cadillac delivers 0% APR for 72 months plus $2,500 bonus cash on all 2020 XT4, XT5, and XT6. Or drive 2020 XT4 Luxury Collection only $299 a month. 2020 XT5 Premium Luxury Collection just $369 a month. And first ever 2020 XT6 Premium Luxury Collection just $399 a month. All for 39-month lease with just $1 down.
RonCarterCadillac.com.
I'm attorney Willie Powles. Allow me to express myself with you. If you've been hurt or injured in a car or truck accident, give me a call and we'll get it fixed today.
it comes to protecting yourself and your partners, all the information out there can be overwhelming. Visit our website. We are a free and confidential service striving to help you stay informed and stay notified. We are committed to a healthy Houston.
Have you been injured in an 18-wheeler accident, truck accident, car accident? Was someone texting and ran into the back of you, not paying attention? It doesn't matter what it is. Give me a call, Attorney Willie Powles. We'll fix it today. The number is 281-881-2457. Again, that number is 281-881-2457. We'll fix it today. Call Attorney Willie Powles.
And now back to the Cam Hill Show.
Hey, we're back with Mark Ruffin. Mark, we were just talking about your book. Let's go back a little bit and let's discuss it. Let's start off. People want to know, they had questions about how did it start and what it's about first.
Again, I was telling you how it started. Man, once I fell in love with fiction writing, just jazz history, I just fell in love with it. I fell in love. Got so many great stories. I was saying how in this time right now, there are so many folks with books out trying to tell people how not to be racist, how to recognize racism. Mm-hmm. The woman who wrote the foreword to my book, her name is Terry Lynn Carrington, a great Grammy Award-winning drummer. She's the one who pointed out to me first what my book does. It checks your own internal biases and allows you to see racism through a different lens without preaching to you, entertaining you, without also telling you some great things about jazz history and baseball history. Mm-hmm. There are 3 stories. The first story is so funny. 2 of the stories are in the South. One is in New Orleans in the 40s, and it's a fictitious tale between the white dancer Bob Fosse. Some folks may know that there's a TV show about Bob Fosse right now, and a great jazz saxophonist named Gene Ammons. And it's about this wild time they have in New Orleans. A lot of people really like this story. They say it's a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. And if you love New Orleans culture, the voodoo culture, the jazz culture, the party culture, it's just a rollicking good time. So many people have said that to me. In fact, man, it's funny. My wife, I remarried late in life. I've been married 5 years now. We've been together 10 years. When we first started dating, like I said, I've worked on this book so long. I let her read that story, okay? A few months later, we were in Panama talking to somebody, and someone asked me what I was doing. I brought up the book. She ran down the whole story. It was like months later, and I was like, "Oh man, that must be something."
Yes.
And many people have told me that they love the characters in the story. I've had people come up to me and repeat lines from from characters. So that's a great story. The second story is called Round Midnight with the Ku Klux Klan, and it's about a white guy, and now we're in the 50s, a white guy in late 50s in Enterprise, Mississippi. He's been unsure of his sexuality. He's been bullied by his dad, who was a former baseball player and successful bootlegger, bullied by all the kids in the neighborhood. But his dad, who didn't want an effeminate kid, but was stuck with him, he made sure he learned one thing: how to hit a baseball. Mm-hmm. And through that, he became a college hero through a fluke. And so we meet him in his 30s, where he's at a bank. He's been at this bank for a while, and they send him to New York City. And in New York City, he learns about black pride. He learns about gay pride, because his dad had sharecroppers, and he learned about a lot of things through a black man who I don't say is Jimmy Baldwin, but it's pretty clear. Everybody else says it.
Yes.
And he teaches him about this guy, about everything. Then he realized he can't send this guy back to Enterprise, Mississippi. Like that, he'd get killed. He'd get killed in New York in 1957. And so he did that, and the guy, everything was cool until the guy, he had ordered records, Miles Davis records, Thelonious Monk records. And and back then they used to call them race records. And when they came into the mail, a sharecropper brought him his mail, and he was trying to teach this sharecropper some black pride. Tell him don't use the N-word. Can you imagine trying to teach a sharecropper in Mississippi in 1957 that he couldn't use the N-word? Okay,
Right.
Or to have that same guy here at Thelonious Monk for the first time, which is can be an acquired taste. The guy he went crazy. He went into town, and one of the guy's childhood nemesis, who was always jealous of him, was a member of the Klan, and he has a meeting with the Klan. And the story, even though I've told this story and may have spoiled something, there's still enough in the story that holds people.
It does.
And I should tell you also, there's a screenplay to the story. There's an actor named Zachary Quinto, and someone from his production company read that story, and they wanted to make me an offer to an option. And I said, no, let me write the screenplay. And so they worked with me for 2 years, man, and that was a great experience. But when they couldn't raise money, they quit calling me back, But it was a great experience.
It is.
And the third story is about a Jewish kid from one side of Philadelphia and a black kid from another side of Philadelphia in 1964. Cam, all the things that happened in 1964 between President Kennedy being shot in 63 and Malcolm X being killed in February 65. Sam Cooke was shot. Nelson Mandela went to jail for the first time. Martin Luther King won the Nobel Peace Prize. The Civil Rights Act was passed. The immigration. I mean, man, so much happened in that time.
Right.
And I took all those events between Kennedy being shot in 63, late 63, and Malcolm X in 65, and I tell this story revolving around the Philadelphia Phillies baseball team and the great jazz man Lee Morgan, and how all these facts create a coming of life story for these two kids from different sides of Philadelphia. And really, it's just a giant love letter to Philadelphia.
What I love about your book is truly a masterpiece, and I read a lot of it. I love the fact that you give the world history. We don't have enough of that. We don't see enough of that. Even children in schools, they don't have the real history. You're able to intertwine both, and I love that.
Thank you, man. That comes from my love of history. That comes from my love of the English language, and there are different authors. People ask me, who is the most influential author for you in this book? And I can easily say, even though she's science fiction author, Octavia Butler.
Yeah.
The black. Do you know the black author Octavia Butler? She's amazing. She's into vampirism and science fiction, but the way she creates her own history it freed me. It freed my imagination.
Yes.
Especially for a black woman to be writing science fiction. It was yeah.
Absolutely. It's so many people watching on today that have written plays. Many have written plays, and they're wanting to transition from plays to screenwriting, to the big screen.
Ooh.
I know. And it's a difference. It's a different writing. But in doing that, they're very visual at it and doing great. What advice would you give them coming from, plays on to screenwriting? Because you were saying Fields would be a great place to start. How to?
Sid Fields, thank you. His name is Sid Fields, is his name.
Yes.
And Sid Fields, man, he at least 5 or 6 books, but I studied him back and forwards. I mean, he gave me great foundation to learn screenwriting. Another guy is William Goldman. William Goldman has a book called Adventures in the Screen Trade. It will inspire you. It will teach you. And read his screenplays. He wrote Chinatown. He wrote a lot of great screenplays. Screenplay writing and stage writing, they're really much more related than trying to write a book of prose. They're different. There's different formats for the two, but it's a visual thing. in playwriting and in screenwriting, it's very important to get to the point, because you're trying to hold them visual. Where when you're writing prose, you got to fill in the blanks. You got to describe. You got to Whereas, man, I mean, God, it's so hard. Just be visual and get to the point always. And read Sid Fields, watch movies. I think stage writers have all the necessary tools to just take their talents over the screenwriting.
Yes, absolutely. Most of them are storytellers. They tell the story. They're storytellers. And if you have a great storyteller, to be honest, looking from a play to the actual screen, if you have a great storyteller, you have a great thing. It's just, it seems to cut down from the play that you're bigger, you have to cut it shorter, like an hour, cut everything down.
But yeah, man, without a story,
yes, great
there's nothing
storytellers.
there.
Yeah.
That's right. Without a story, and people who look for great stories, they can cut through your deficiencies as a writer, your deficiencies as correct grammar and stuff. If you got a story, that's what's important to people who are looking for a story. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially now, because in those 3 that you have in your book, you have 3 separate stories, but just the history of them is just so pivotal. Yeah. It's just pivotal.
I love history, so that's a big part of that. I love history. And there's so much rich Black history. And man, look at the best thing for screenwriters in the last 10 years has been Netflix and Amazon. Yes. Okay. Because they've been telling some great Black stories, okay?
Well, look at it now. We're in a pandemic. We can't go. We're not going to the movies or anything. We're not going. They're closing down. They're actually closing down. So we're having to look at, your Netflix, your Amazons, your Rokus, or whatever, Hulus. You that's where you're at with your family.
But you also can read. You also can read.
I see how you put your book up there. Let's tell them about the name of the book. Let's be precise. Let's tell them about the name.
Bebop Fairy Tales. That's the short name. The whole name is Bebop Fairy Tales, an historical fiction trilogy on jazz, intolerance, and baseball.
There you go. There you go. And the trilogy part, someone asked about that, the fiction and trilogy on jazz. Why so? Why that part in there? Why that name?
Oh, okay. So again, when I fell in love with screenwriting, there was so much history invaded my head, and everybody has a story. And I mean, I'm fixed to jazz, but man, I could have easily, told Motown stories or told stories about how hip hop started. There are many ways I could have went, but jazz owns me in a way. So I had like 6 stories, man. When I decided to do the book, and another thing that took me so long is I kept working on one story or another story. You'll love this story. I have a story called Confirmation. This is the opening line. Michael Jackson, Charlie Parker, and Dinah Washington walk into a bar. That's the opening line of this story. And it's a story about the 3 of them. Now, that's Michael Jackson, Dinah Washington, and Charlie Parker. They all have the same birthday. They all have royal monikers to their name. She was the Queen of Blues. He was the Prince of Pop. He was, and they all died the same way. Okay, all drug overdoses. And then my story is kind of a Twilight Zone story. And what's crazy is I started the story when Michael Jackson was alive, but Dinah Washington was the bad cop, and Charlie Parker the good cop, trying to convince him to stop doing drugs. I love that story so much, and I still might finish it, but there's so many great lines like Dinah Washington. Did you know Dinah Washington's producer was Quincy Jones?
Wow, didn't. Yeah.
Okay. So I in my story, she convinces Michael, I'm the one who brought Quincy Jones to you. I've been watching you,
Yeah.
And there's a great line about Charlie Parker, where Charlie Parker being the good cop, tries to tell Michael, you got to live, I could have saved the world from Kenny G had I lived, And so, I mean, I love that story. So there were I had a story about Josephine Baker in World War II. A lot of people don't know that Josephine Baker was a French decorated war hero, okay? And I had this story about her tricking Nazis in Spain. And then I had another space age story along with these 3. So I had 6 stories. The one that was most complete was the one Saturday Night Fish Fry, the wild story about New Orleans. But then when I saw that 2 other stories had baseball in it, I decided to go that way because all my stories are about intolerance. It's funny, Cam, doing interviews about this book, I've learned why I wrote the book. And one is I want the world to be happy, man. I want people to get along, Yeah. And so that's how it happened. I just had to cut down to those 3 stories that I had in my head.
Absolutely. People are asking about these Emmys that you said. Let's talk about them. How did they come about?
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You're an Emmy Award winner. We're not going to run over that. Can't leave that out.
Again, man, I've been so lucky in my career. We were talking about tips for people.
Yes.
I can also say, be nice to people. Just, there's no reason to be arrogant or asshole or I'm sorry about that or, just be nice to people. So I told you about those 20 years when I was employed and then I became a freelancer. So many things happened to me during my freelance years and my phone would ring all the time. And one time my phone rang and this guy was on the other end, said he was from the public television station and that he thought I would be really good on TV. I was like, whoa, and asked me to come get a screen test. And I came, got the screen test. It was a hot summer day. I was outside and they loved it, man. And they made me a cultural correspondent for a television show in Chicago. And I got to do stories about music and about jazz. And a year later, I got nominated for and won an Emmy. And I told this guy who called me, I was like, dude, I cannot have an Emmy. There are people working at TV for years, they don't get an Emmy. And he said to me, you worked in radio for 20 years, what did they give you?
Right.
So I took that Emmy. But the part about being nice. So after about a year, and I was at this TV station for 6 years, won a second Emmy, I got tight with the guy and I asked him, I said, dude, why did you call me? And he said, I was on the radio and he called me one night, kind of drunk and belligerent about a piano player I was playing that he insisted and knew who it was. And I kept telling him it wasn't. And he said he was so mean to him, and the meaner he got, the nicer I got. And he said that's why he called me, because I was nice to him that night.
What a story on that one. And then an Emmy comes along.
Yes. The Emmys, the first Emmy was for a story on, and they're both news Emmys, not acting. First story was on Valentine's Day gig that a jazz musician had, but the second story was about black hair care. And I put a lot of effort into it, and I'm really proud that it won an Emmy. What that TV show did was allow me to tell black stories in a great way, and that was one of them. It was called Hair Stories.
Wow.
I'm really proud of it.
Absolutely. And just doing that, and we were talking to different people. Again, we were saying 40 million people were unemployed, and just looking at what they would like to do as dreamers. What would you tell them to do as well as jump? Because so many people are afraid to do things. Fear, I think, stops many people from their, they stop them from their, their passion, It's fear.
Someone told me a long time ago, fear is your body's way of telling you that you are alive.
Wow.
If you're not out challenging yourself, you're laying back, and you could be watching things walk by you. There's so many little cliches I can have. You got to keep going, because you can get to the corner and you never know what's around the corner until you go see, until you jump. You know, I take it to my wife, man. I have such a beautiful lady right now, and like I said, we've been together 10 years, married 5. But early in our relationship, I'll never forget it. We were in Venice Beach, and she's been retired for a number of years. And she was so concerned, although retired, but always searching for something. And she was so concerned about me caring about what she would do. And I feel like this for anybody. What you want to do is up to you, but you gotta jump. You gotta jump off the cliff. If you don't jump off the cliff, you don't know how high you can fly. Okay? And if you can't fly, you can always get back up. I mean, and so to me, you said it. It's about jumping. It's about trying to decide. And right now, man, I feel for people. It's hard to tell somebody that now, Cam.
Yeah,
that they can dream to get what they want when they may be having a hard time wondering what they're going to eat next week, or Christmas. Again, man, to me, it's just about persevering.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, I agree with that. I really agree with that. A lady had called about the fact that, and she was saying how she just recently retired completely. She had been retired from military, and then she retired again. You know, she was working, but then she just decided, let me do my passion. You know, when COVID hit, you see so many of family members and people passing away, and it just makes you think differently, you know, that this is your time.
Yep. I never wanted to be one of those people who wondered, what if I would have?
Yeah.
You know, and this is a good time for people to try something else, try something new.
Absolutely. And then writing books, journaling. A lot of people journal. Ooh. Yeah, journaling and writing books. This is leaving, generations will have your book. You're leaving a legacy there. Look at you.
Wow. Thank you for that. But I do believe that there are many lessons that can be learned about life, history, and racism in my book. I really believe that.
Yes.
I believe that you can see people differently. You'll see gender issues differently. You can see race issues differently. Man, I've had so many. I have so many of my white friends say to me how this book made them feel better about racism.
Yes.
Again, you look. My book makes you look into yourself, I think. While you're having a good time, but you look into yourself. In fact, well, now that we're talking about, I would love to read. There's a friend of mine who, my foreword is by Terry Lynn Carrington.
Okay,
but my
let's read it.
introduction is by. Well, I want to read what my friend says about. In fact, I'll read 2 passages. Okay.
Okay.
Since I'm going to read from Terry Lynn. Terry Lynn. The author compels us to look at white privilege from multiple angles and to look at the traumatic malignancy of black hatred. As well, he nudges us to investigate closely our own biases, explicit, implicit, or internalized, whether it's towards those of another racial identity or the gay and transgender community, all while telling us some pretty impressive facts about legendary jazzers, sportsmen, and the cities they incarnate. Pretty cool. I really like that. I think that says a lot about the book. And then the guy that's from Terry Lynn Carrington's foreword, and then the introduction by my Grammy Award-winning friend Neil Tesser, who says that he could entertain us with these creations, even as they address the harsh reality, is a trick as complicated as the chord sequence John Coltrane introduced on Giant Steps. And the ability to strike that balance to run those changes and dole out the dozens to stitch the things he loves into the thing that threatens make bebop fairy tales a vibrant tapestry about to unfold. And I just love those
Yes,
two
I
paragraphs.
love that one, definitely. I
describing the
love
book.
both of those. Yes, definitely, definitely. Let's not leave out your SiriusXM. Let's not leave that out. Let's talk about it a little bit. Yes, Real Jazz. And where to find them.
Okay.
Where to find you.
Okay. So I will be talking about you this afternoon on the radio. I go on in a half hour, in fact.
Yes.
And I got to give a shout out to Houston, man. Houston Jazz Orchestra, led by my
Yes.
friend Vincent Gardner down in Houston.
Shout
Houston
out to
Jazz.
Vincent. Yes.
Yeah, please support Houston Jazz, folks. I like I said, man, I was working for Oprah Winfrey. Okay, I thought that was it. Okay,
Yes.
And to get this to okay, so that was 26 years in jazz radio, and then here's this job with this big woman. And I was ready to walk away. I was ready, I still freelance. And then 16 months later, to be blindsided by your dream job, I can't say enough about how excited I was and how scared I was. But I also followed my own advice. I knew fear was my way of my body telling me I'm alive. And I took the challenge. I feel like I program jazz for the country. I think I take the responsibility seriously. And I think that my success in 40 years has been my ability to, like Duke Ellington. Duke Ellington used to write music for each individual person in the band. I try to program music for the jazz jock who I am programming for, all the while trying to entertain and make sure the listeners learn and have fun. I learned in 40 years, and I think that's what makes me successful. I don't go too far left. Jazz is like political parties. You can go too far left and be avant-garde. You can go too far right and be a little conservative.
Yes.
My success has been always in the middle. Roll out the hits.
So where to find you?
Feel good.
Where to find you?
Real Jazz.
Yeah.
Real Jazz, SiriusXM channel 67. I am on 3 to 5 Eastern. That's 2 to it's 3 to 5 Eastern, 3 to 6 Eastern, and 2 to 5 Central Time.
Absolutely.
So like I said, I'll be on in just a little while.
Absolutely. Well, that's Mark Ruffin. I appreciate you, my friend, for everything. We're trying to get you out here, get you moving. Love everything about you. God bless you. God keep you. I'm going to be calling you, my friend. We're going to be talking. I appreciate you so much for the opportunity. Shout out to Miss Deborah for putting us together, for putting our souls together here. And I appreciate that so much.
Thank you, Cam. Thank you.
Talk to you soon. On tomorrow, we will have Dave Tolliver of Men at Large, 12:30 to 1:30 Central Standard Time. Bye.